All right, so Tigers lose a home series for the first time.
Oh, my God.
I mean, yeah.
Oh, what
Did you do this? Did you do this?
Yeah.
I think I did.
You wrote something on Friday night, and they have been outscored.
Every time you write a glowing
16-4
column
since.
about somebody, it goes south,
No,
right?
it's
Never
true.
write about
Yeah.
me, please.
You are.
Well, what am I supposed to do? They come back from this road trip. They have the best record in baseball, the best home record, 14-3, and everybody raving, myself included. And then they just get waxed 2 games in a row. But, I mean, because, and we allow A.J. Hinch to be like that, because he is so, you can't get him to gush about anything.
Ever.
So you're not going to get him to lambaste anything, and nor should he. They were 2 rough losses, of course. A little bit of ebbs and flows in the pitching staff with Casey Mize down now. Nothing to worry about unless you don't believe how a baseball season works.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
I was going to say, this weekend was a great reminder of the twists and turns of a baseball season.
162 games will do that.
As Stoney once told me, the baseball season's long, guys. I don't know if you're aware of that.
He never said that to me.
If we had done this show on Saturday morning, we're talking about the team with the best record in baseball that had
5-game winning
5
streak.
straight. We do it instead on Sunday night, and we're talking about a team that is maybe showing minor cracks for the first time this
Probably
season.
a seller at the trade deadline now.
Nothing to be
I'm
concerned
kidding.
about. You kind of want to just douse the last 2 games in gas and light them on fire and just simply be done with it. But look,
Which is what A.J. Hinch will do.
And exactly.
Yes.
And this team hasn't lost 3 straight this year since the first 3 games of the season.
Right.
A good bounce back test this week against the Red Sox. I do think they'll bounce back. Jack Flaherty gives you slight pause, but besides that, this pitching has been proven and sturdy enough all year. This team should be fine.
Well, just let's go with slight pause for a second. Even more significant pause, Casey Mize now on the 15-day DL, and Flaherty, you know, maybe not getting off to the start that he had looked for or the team had looked for. The good news is everybody to a man, including Casey Mize, is saying this is a mild hamstring strain, not anything like what he had last year, a different injury.
Correct. Hamstring injury, which a hamstring is not attached to the arm, at least, which is always good for a pitcher.
Yeah.
The Flaherty thing is a little bit disconcerting, but they have so many options. I mean, at some point they might get Alex Cobb back, and I'm not concerned about that at all. Let me ask you this. They play the Red Sox 3. Is Tarek Skubal pitching in one of those games?
He is.
You feel good about that?
Okay, they'll win at least 1 game in that series then.
Yeah,
I'm not concerned.
We mentioned Ken's, my lovely wife. When I came home from the game on Saturday night, their 10-3 loss, she said, well, did Skubal pitch? I was like, well, no, Skubal pitched last night. And she said, why didn't Skubal pitch? I'm like, well, he can't pitch every night. But if he could, they'd be fine. I'll make one note. Over the final 2 games of this series, their bottom 4 hitters, so 6 through 9, went 2 for 26 with 12 Ks. That's a pretty good way to get beat and get beat roundly in 2 straight games. This lineup has been really well balanced and really productive all season long. There were some holes this weekend against 2 really good pitchers in Eovaldi and DeGrom. Again, I think they'll be okay, but just some things to watch as they move forward.
Well, and as we also give pause for the injuries, I think we should also look at the fact that Matt Vierling may be headed back here soon.
Correct.
He's playing. They're moving him around the field. They're getting him a feel for, as A.J. Hinch says, exactly what he'll be doing in Detroit. And getting him back would be a big plus for A.J. Hinch, just for his ability to play different positions.
Well, you know what's interesting? I mean, first of all, they weren't going to be plus 83 run differential. I mean, that's like historic if that continued all year. So that was, I don't know if an overcorrection, but a correction. The weird thing is, when they were going to hit a slump, every team does, you kind of thought it would be hitting, and there is a little bit of it. But pitching back-to-back has been the issue. But I also expect that hitting to revert to the norm at some point, and just be prepared for it. I'll let you know when it's time to freak out, okay?
Woj, I think you were the first one to say this. Oh, that's baseball.
That's baseball.
That's baseball.
Yep.
And you know what? The best thing about this start is they have bought themselves a lot of room for error without maybe their best player in Parker Meadows and one of their more impactful players in Matt Vierling. Now, we'll see when Meadows returns. It might not be soon. It might be. That seems kind of unpredictable. But they are 26-15. That is still the best record in the AL. They should be, for the third time, I'll say it, just okay.
But you know what sucks? Can I say that?
Yeah, you just did.
Oh, yeah. The AL Central is still scorching.
Yeah.
Going into Friday night, the AL Central overall had a 22-game winning streak with the Royals had won like 7 in a row, the Twins had won. And we saw those Twins are like,
Yeah, what are those guys?
long baseball season.
All right, so here's what jumps out at me, Woj. Percentage chance when we get to Ford Field coming up for the regular season that there's an Isaac Tesla calendar being sold.
He looks like an action hero.
He actually does. And you know what? And we'll get to some of these other guys. Let's start with him since I brought him up.
The hair.
The hair is great. The hair is great.
There.
But no, I mean, just watching him move out there and look, he's going against other rookies. There's a million miles to go before he catches his first NFL pass. You can see some of the things that they liked in him. He is smooth. The hands are there. The speed is there. The burst is there. I mean, it was an interesting first look at him.
The hair is there. The hair
is definitely there.
And it wasn't a mistake or a coincidence that they opened their 7-on-7 drills by throwing the ball to Tesla on the first
16 times.
Plays, and maybe the next 12 as well. And you're right. When you see a guy with springs in his legs that can glide around the field, has a smoothness to him, and really soft hands, and a great vertical, and you put it all in a 6'4" frame, you understand why Brad Holmes called him his favorite receiver in the draft. And let's not forget, this is the same GM who found St. Brown in the 4th round, who found Cooper Kupp back with the Rams. So when he says that about a receiver who might have been unheralded, might have been unknown entering the draft, you put some serious stock in that. And by first impression for us, he does look the part.
Well, didn't the Rams try to move up ahead?
That's the current word out there, that the Rams were looking at him as well.
And Holmes has adopted somewhat of that Rams strategy. Not adopted, he was also created it. Blank them picks to a certain degree, throwing together the 3rd-round picks.
Get your guys.
To get your guy, and I think he was more coveted than they realized. And he will be the flashpoint because he's a receiver and he has a head of hair. But the big fellas on the inside, in the middle, on the offensive line and defensive line, those are the guys that will make probably the quickest impact.
Tylik Williams a little bit limited in terms of what we were able to see on Friday, and then just watching him kind of move Ratledge and Frazier around, giving him a taste of what they might get. Frazier saw tackle, Frazier saw guard, Ratledge saw center, Ratledge saw guard.
Yeah, and those guard spots are up for grabs. Yeah. And there are 4 guys between Ratledge, Frazier, Mahogany, and Glasgow competing for 2 spots in camp. And obviously Ragnow and Decker and Sewell are entrenched at center and the outside, but there are questions to be answered on the interior. And I'm telling you, man, Tate Ratledge looks like a guy who is going to be a possible day 1 starter and maybe a day 1 impact player. You know, Ray Agnew, assistant GM and former NFL defensive lineman, said when he looks at guards and interior offensive linemen, he wants guys who are grimy, who hit you after the whistle. The guys that he hated playing against are the guys they look for now. And Tate Ratledge is a self-described dirtbag. And so I think it's safe to say he's going to play a role and potentially a pretty big one for this team as a rookie.
And I see a theme developing here.
What's that?
Who were you just talking about? The little Tesla guy, right?
Yeah.
The receiver?
Yeah.
His hair?
Yeah.
Have you seen Ratledge's hair?
Yeah.
He's got a mullet.
Yeah. Well, let's just say this.
Mullet.
They all apparently passed the airport test. They give you plenty to talk about as they're walking by.
A mauler with a mullet.
You're bursting at the seams.
Well, no. He slid that at Trey Langdon, very intelligent, very good leader as far as we can tell so far. He slid it in there. Season positive things and negative things, but mostly positive things. And the negative thing, which isn't really a negative thing, but what he was trying to say is...
Those like us?
No, yeah. We know we raised expectations. Yeah. We know we had a great year. He didn't actually say this. I'm doing the thought bubble.
Yeah.
We know we had a great year, but don't think that all of it we're going to take the next leap and be in the NBA Finals next year. And some people will expect a natural progression, and there should be some progression, but you can't go from 14 to 44 to 74 wins.
Are you saying there could be regression?
There actually could be in certain areas.
It's interesting, and I don't say that to be negative, but I think, look, they really set a high standard this year for what this new regime is with what they did. And I'm not just talking about tripling the win totals, but playing a first-round series that you come out of it disappointed they didn't win because you felt like it was right there. But credit to Trajan Langdon and credit to J.B. Bickerstaff. They threaded the needle by getting Tobias Harris, who was terrific.
Yeah.
Beasley was terrific. Hardaway was rock solid. And Schroeder was a very good pickup at the deadline. Now you got to make a decision on 3 of those guys. Harris is the only one under contract for next year. And if you don't get it right, you could easily take a step back.
Yeah,
That's the
and
point.
it's hard to bank on Malik Beasley nailing 300-plus threes again next season. And I do think he'll be
Especially
back.
if he's playing
There's
for somebody
strong,
else.
There's strong mutual interest. And maybe they can use the mid-level exception that Dan Miller loves to talk about. And maybe $14 million is a starting point for his salary. But in a league that values the 3, it wouldn't shock me if some team offers Malik Beasley 3 years and $60 million or 3 years and 60+. And maybe the Pistons aren't inclined to match that. Langdon was pretty non-committal. In fact, he was just straight up non-committal about which guys he'll bring back because it's hard to predict what the market might bear for them. And there's also this to consider. Cade Cunningham this year played on a cap hit of $14 million. Well, his extension next year kicks in, and that cap hit rises to almost $40 million next season. So the money does begin to get tight. But also, credit Woj, who asked Langdon what became a pretty revealing answer when you said, you feel like given the step this team took and pushing the Knicks to the limit, it's time to add a significant piece to this team. And Langdon said, I think we need to learn more about our players. And I would say the biggest one is the one that I've talked about the most, Jaden Ivey, who was playing like a potential co-star, a potential Robin to Cade's Batman when he fractured his leg. And I think they want to see that through for the course of a full season, and I think they're wise to do so.
And that's the other needle to thread. Are you ready for that leap for a package first-round picks and somebody and get Giannis or something? And Giannis is probably going to get moved this offseason, and I'd give up a lot for him. But are you really willing to do that when all these guys are just scratching the surface? Asar Thompson and Jaden Ivey and Ron Holland. And I think that's what he means about the positive and the negative. I tend to think he's not going to make a big leap. He is enamored, as he should be, too, with what Jaden Ivey might be and what he showed when he did play this year.
But there are still other roles that have to be filled, and that's where it comes into a question of re-signing some of those guys. Or do you go outside the organization to try to augment what you're going to do? Whose minutes do they think Jaden Ivey comes in and takes? You know,
well, no, that's a good point.
I mean, he's going to take some of the minutes that some of the guys that we're talking about, Hardaway and Beasley, had this past season. Do they trust him to handle the ball, which would impact Schroeder's minutes? So I think there's a lot of questions that they have to answer. And in answering them, sometimes you take some risk that you have to get it right. Otherwise, it can impact your record and impact your ability to move forward and move up.
Yeah, I think when you decipher Langdon's comments, it sounds like he is valuing growth over upgrades, but growth also equals upgrades. And I think that's the message he was trying to convey, that if these guys, all of these guys, or even some of these guys in that 19 to 23-year-old age range, take steps this season or this summer and next season, the team as a whole gets collectively better. I think that's the route they want to go this summer. We'll see what next season bears.
If we're just playing wish, you had the name in your column, Naz Reid.
Oh, yes.
Stretch
absolutely.
4, shoots 38% from 3. Look, I'm just throwing it out there. It's a Hail Mary. I have no idea if it's possibly as a player option coming up for this season, but that's the kind of guy that could be a really nice
and you're not going to
we'll
keep
see.
all of those 4 veterans that you brought in. Some will leave, whether it's Hardaway or maybe even the three-point shooter.
Come on down, Naz Reid.
We'll see what happens. All right, check these guys out on 97.1 The Ticket.